If you've been paying attention, you may have noticed something very interesting that was happening at the end of 2025. American companies aren't talking about their moves to the continent of Africa, but they're moving decisively. Companies like Walmart, which has had a presence, but is now officially in a brand recognition role here in South Africa. Companies like Canva, US infrastructure firms, and even US venture capital firms are decisively relocating to South Africa, Kenya, and even parts of West Africa, including Nigeria, as one of the main hubs. These aren't exploratory conversations. This isn't hype. This is actually happening. And these founders, executives, and investors are making an intentional bet on the growth of Africa. And so this is the key question that I want to leave you with. If serious American companies know about the growth and opportunities that are happening in Africa, what do they see that most executives don't? In this video, we're going to talk about it. Welcome to the channel. My name is Ashley Cleveland. I am a global wealth strategist focusing on working with smart money investors that are diversifying themselves across East, Southern, and West Africa with a due diligence strategy that most investors do not know exist. I guide these founders, these entrepreneurs, and these investors through immigration, tax, investment, and estate protections so that they're protected once they enter into their desired African market. They're protected from day one with an on-the-ground strategy that works. It's essentially helped dozens of people directly and supported thousands of people traveling, moving, and doing business here on the continent of Africa. So if this type of content resonates with you, be sure to like this video and share it with someone who would find value in it. And subscribe if you want to join us. The community is growing. We're on a road to 100,000. But what's more important to me is that people are not only getting the value, but they're being pushed to take action. You guys know how I feel about action. So follow along if you're interested in learning more and taking action at the same time. I want to walk you through exactly why Africa is attracting American-based companies specifically, and what this shift means not only for you, but for smart leaders, founders who are positioning themselves ahead of the curve. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you don't have an Africa strategy, you don't have a growth strategy. So for all my tech firms, for all my fintech folks, even real estate developers, bankers, and any other industry with high growth opportunity, if you're not looking at the continent of Africa for growth, then you can expect to see decline in your business. Maybe not this year, but eventually. Unless it's, corporate prisons, of course. I digress. So let's talk about what was happening in 2025 that no one saw. It wasn't about optimism. There were quiet things happening. Millions of people lost their jobs in America. And the ones that didn't are working for the firms that have eyes on the continent of Africa, because the barriers to entry are honestly still fairly low. People that were looking at China, people that were looking at going to India, well, those barriers are a bit higher, those costs are a bit larger, but still, African opportunities still exist at a very conservative price point compared to other markets with similar lifestyle opportunities, similar levels of high quality talent, and then of course, similar levels of market opportunities where there are deeper markets such as Nairobi, Kenya, or Johannesburg, South Africa. These are essentially the global hubs of commerce here on the continent of Africa. So what does that look like? What are American companies facing in the US that they're not facing here on the continent? Well, in the US, there's, of course, market saturation. There's all of this regulatory friction. There's a lot of requirements, the cost of labor, and also the political and supply chain volatility. If I was an employer in America, I would not want to have any employees either. You're constantly traumatized on a daily basis based on every decision that the leadership has made and is making in real time. So these companies see optionality and they're taking action on it. Why aren't you? So what I'm seeing here on the ground, I'm seeing consumer growth at an all-time high, right? And it's not fully priced in yet. There is a market cap that has barely been reached, right? Governments are actively counting out US growth. They aren't sending their teams there anymore, unless they're in specific industries, as I said. And people see the opportunity to digitally leapfrog using the technology that has been moving millions, billions, trillions of dollars in transactions here on the continent, despite so-called levels of poverty and unbankability. No, the technology that exists here and the youth and the talent that exists here is why US companies are making their way to the continent. So this is why we're seeing companies like Walmart expanding their branded operations to the US. Yes, they've had companies that they are affiliated with that are allowed to use their supply chain, that have equity stake, but branded facilities are coming. Call it good, call it bad. The goal is for people to take the information and do something with it, not get afraid, right? Mom and pop stores are still here. They still do exist. It is now up to them to use the information and figure out how they pivot or how they make their way through the volatility and the changes that are happening. We don't push against what's happening. We move and flow, and we adjust ourselves accordingly, creating systems and strategies within our own business to make sure that there's sustainability, to make sure that communities are seeing the benefit. But what we don't focus on are the corporations that are going to be corporations and do what the corporations do, or the governments that allow it to happen, right? Nobody owes us anything. And for people that are focused on changing their lives, they're taking action and they're moving in the direction that is aligned with their values and their business goals, and they're doing things their way, right? Are you one of them? I want to know. So these companies are coming. It's not just, like I said, Walmart, but infrastructure, US-linked infrastructure and technology firms signing 9-figure deals to access talent, land, market opportunity, market share, not because Africa is easy, but because Africa is strategically underexposed and derogatorily marketed to people that believe it. It took a young 20-year-old Black man to travel this continent for the young people and some of the old people to realize that the lie they had been told about Africa was in fact a lie. But for years, creators, not just like myself, but creators have been sharing the beauty of Africa. But well done to him, because we've seen the market prices rise. My inbox is flooded, but the folks that took action last year saw record-breaking numbers. Their investment accounts outperformed the S&P 500. They purchased property at a 20 to 30% discount because of the rand to dollar value last year versus where it is now. And they've started their businesses and have been hiring talent for the last few years, some decades. So this is why action, first mover advantage, matters. And I'm not here to say that those opportunities don't exist, but I am here to say that the window of opportunity is closing. So what are these companies actually doing differently here on the continent? And this is where most people get wrong. These companies, they're not just rushing in. they've got on-the-ground insights. They've got on-the-ground consultants providing them with market analysis, providing them with cultural nuance, providing them with an insight and understanding that they just can't get by looking online or taking a few trips here. I'm actually working with a corporation now that had no idea about the weather change in the southern hemisphere. They had no idea that our summers here in South Africa are north, the northern hemisphere's winters. Multi-million-dollar company. I'm speaking to a senior executive making six figures, 300 plus likely, didn't know that. They wanted to plan an annual trip in August or July, during their summer. And I had to redirect them into another country to avoid, disappointment. So these on-the-ground insights, as small as weather, but could be as big as, no, this is exactly how you want to make sure you structure your business to be compliant within the protocols and systems that South Africa requires. There is no affirmative action, but there is something called BEE. We don't do LLC structuring, but there is something called PTY LTD. These are small things, but ultimately, when you're doing research, you may not necessarily find the best information, and then you may not even find the most accurate information. So these companies gain leverage by having an on-the-ground insight, an on-the-ground team, because we're able to pull in a payroll system that can support their team, set them up with immigration support, while simultaneously finding them short and long-term housing and giving them options for the best places for them to get access to healthcare and education for their families. These are things that have taken us time to build, but essentially these are the reasons why companies are coming to the table, because they recognize the African growth opportunities and they've identified someone on the ground that not only has the background and professional acumen to give them strategic guidance, but has the personal experience of doing it with herself and her family. So they're doing this through going through partnerships, right? Not just trying to figure it out on their own, not just popping into Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups and asking questions. They're hiring vetted experts and they're getting it done quickly. They're also leading with legal and regulatory clarity. It is never a good thing for a person to tell you that you don't need a lawyer. I was having a conversation with a prospect today who is looking at purchasing some rental investment real estate here in Cape Town, South Africa. And as I knew, this is, real estate agents here, great people, unlimited amount of income, but there are protections that don't exist here in South Africa for buyers that exist in different markets like the US and the UK. And so when a real estate agent tells you to make a purchase of real estate and say, well, you don't really need an attorney as a foreigner, that's a red flag, because their goal is ultimately to sell you that real estate because that's the only way that they make money. It doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them a person that's not telling you the truth. But if I were spending significant amount of my net worth on a property in a country where I don't have citizenship and a set of legal rights that I'm fully aware of, why would I go into that purchase unprotected? I'd invest in an expertise telling me what I need to know and versus wishing that I had done it later. It's always better to have an attorney and not need one than need an attorney and not have one. So these investors they're structuring for resilience, not speed. Africa is not a get-rich-quick market. I don't care if it's South Africa, if it's Ghana, if it's Nairobi, and you see all that's going on. This is not a place where you come and invest looking for a return on your investment in 3 to 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. All of my investments, I'm going in for the long term, whether it's my angel investments, whether it's my equities, whether it's my Bitcoin, whether it's my business. This is a 10-year commitment that I said I am committed to doing this work for 10 years until I see a return. That's the type of commitment you need to have to invest in Africa. But yes, there are opportunities to receive a return on your investment in a shorter period of time. But don't just let somebody don't take their word for it. Don't take my word for it. Past performance, auditing reports, contracts and agreements, shareholder licenses. These things are required when you're starting a business, when you're buying a property, when you're investing in even a simple account. This is not just doing business and, I'm going to take my last $5,000, $13,000 invest in Africa. This is about strategy. So why waiting is ultimately your biggest risk? Well, let me tell you something that you probably don't want to hear. The biggest risk of entering into Africa is not entering correctly. It's not entering correctly, and it's entering too late. As I mentioned, folks that made purchases a year ago, their property values have already increased, and they leveraged their dollar to rand ratio, that value, and 20%. They're up 20% in a year on their investment, regardless of what their currency value is today, right? Or their equity is today. So automatically, they're up. And so early movers, they're securing the strongest positions and the strongest partners. They're locking in regulatory pricing and the positions of being associated with the things and the ways that they were before they shift. They're making a lot of reforms to immigration, right? The people that have entered in and gotten certain visas, those visas are going away this year. People that are taking action are able to benefit from that early action. Early movers are shaping policy conversations. My family, T3andMe in Tanzania, getting ambassadorship with the African Union. Me working with ambassadors across the African Union, West Africa and Southern Africa, getting aligned with different nonpartisan leaders that are shaping policy and shaping the global positioning and the global relationships between South Africa and the world, China, Russia, India, South America, Brazil. These are growing markets with growing buying power, strong talent pools, and better infrastructure. All of them are establishing brand and trust advantage, working within the systems that exist now, while the old partners are collapsing in real time. So the goal of this is for you to understand that Africa rewards first action takers, the bold, and people that are first to market. Not just people that are traveling here. Yes, do travel here. But if you travel here, expect to purchase a property and head back home, and something shifts and changes, the number one thing that happens is you divest your legacy from your assets because you didn't structure it properly. And 9 times out of 10, as a foreigner, you probably got charged 15 to 20% more than you had to spend. And then if you're like most people, you haven't been exposed to the technology that I've recently discovered. Well, I didn't discover it, but I've discovered it for myself, and I hope to use it with my clients, and will definitely be doing something maybe in the future to show people how the transaction of money is changing. It has changed. It has changed, and old systems are not going to be any longer. I mean, we don't even need them. International money transacting across borders without a SWIFT system, which is what BRICS has been saying they are going to do, it's already done. It's already here. And the people that don't know and that are just taking action on a whim, they're going to be the ones that suffer in the long term. So I've spent the last few years studying this market, advising investors and advising experts on what investors are looking for, what foreign investors need. And we've created the frameworks across Southern Africa, Tanzania, Mauritius, and Kenya, right? Going into West Africa as well. We're still firming up a few things. And what I see that ultimately separates the people that are successful from the people that fail is not the amount of capital that they have, but it is the structure that they put in place or that they listen to when it's created for them, the strategy around that structure, so that they're very clear. So this is why we're doing what we're doing, not only for you, but for your long-term legacy and the benefit of the economy in which you're investing in. People are moving to the continent, not in the ways that they have in the past where everything was about extraction. People want to live here for the quality of life, for the culture, for the food, and for the opportunities, as well as the protections and the safeties, because we see the barriers breaking down and the Western system crumbling and the enemies identifying themselves. But the biggest thing is timing. When people rush to take action, they always fail. And failure is okay if you can afford it in the short term. But timing and taking your time and doing so with a due diligence process, it only helps. It never hurts you, because anything you lose out on wasn't for you in the first place. And so know that Africa doesn't punish ambition, but it does punish, and it will punish, poor preparation. So if you're a founder, you're an executive, you're an advisor that is focused on successfully entering into the most promising markets on the continent of Africa, you're a decision maker that decides when and how that happens. Africa is not a question of whether you should explore it. It is a question of how to explore it strategically and in a way that protects you and your team from day one. So this also means finding the right place, identifying the right teams, the right talent to support and grow your business, the proper legal and tax structuring, being aligned with the government. Are you bringing something that the government actively wants to see and needs? If so, there is potentially support there. But ultimately, de-risking your investment in your market entry strategy in a way that adjusts for growth and mitigates and minimizes risk. Because you can't remove it all, but you can do so strategically and have a broader, bigger picture, effectively just taking your time. So this is exactly what we do and what we've done inside the Africa Wealth Strategy System. If this type of information sounds valuable to you, you've been listening to our content, or you just stumbled upon our content and you just want to have a conversation, let's see if it's a fit. Apply to work with us in the link below. You'll get a form to fill out. We'll get some information on you, learn a little bit about what you want to do, how you want to do it, and if it's a fit to work with us. And if we see that it is, we'll schedule a call to work with you one-on-one to determine your best entryway into the most powerful continent in the 21st century. So if you found this information valuable, you found this video of value, like it, share it with someone else who finds value in it, and subscribe. And see you in the next video.